What's
Two
that?
fix the pillows a little. No, put the two green ones to the right behind you, and then just make the blankie sort of a little more jauntily angled, as I like to say.
Jaunty.
Hey, everybody. I'm Sam from Mvnifest, and this is my new podcast. It's called I Broke My Leg, and I'm sitting in this chair for who knows how long. So to pass the time and to create some fun conversations and content, we created a podcast where we invite cool guests, people that we know and love, new people that we're interested in hearing from in the industry. And we're just going to have a little conversation. Today's guest is Brian Rose. Brian's last name and my last name are the same. And that's not a coincidence. Brian's my husband. Hey, sweetie.
Hey, honey.
And we have built a family together, a business together, and a life together. And we thought that it would be fun to share with you all some how that's happened. So here we go. Brian doesn't know the questions that he's about to be asked, but I do. So I made some notes for myself. So Brian, here we go. The first business that we built together was Get It Right. And I'd love to hear from you what it was like to build Gear, our kitchenware brand, together, and the role that you played in that business and in that story.
Well, I was thinking about this the other day, and one of the first memories I had for when Gear became sort of real for me was I was a retail and consumer goods analyst for an investment firm at the time. And I went to a meeting with the Container Store CFO because the Container Store was in the market for a new bond offering. And I was ostensibly there to talk about their new bond deal. And all I wanted to talk to her about was the products we were selling into the Container Store and how great they were doing and how great their buyers were. And walking out of that meeting thinking, I'm supposed to talk about bonds, and what I want to talk about is silicone lids. That was the first moment for me where I felt like my career is sort of shifting, and what we're doing here with Gear is as interesting as what I was doing at a hedge fund trying to predict the outcome of quarterly sales for a Container Store.
I don't know if I've ever heard that story before. It's so endearing.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was a fascinating shift in my mentality. That's sort of when it became real for me.
Well, on that note, let's talk about the dynamics of building a business with a partner or with a close friend, both of which we've done. We're friends too, by the way. What are some of the things that you learned, on the job building together? And then as you consider that, like, advice for, anyone considering the same thing?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. I think one is, I think you have to decide relatively early, and you can change, but what things are you going to divide and conquer on, and which are the important things where you want to have a joint decision-making process around? Where do you want to divide and where do you want to really come together? The second thing is being really intellectually honest with yourself about what things you're not as good at as your partner. And that's the interesting thing, because when I was working at a different job, I didn't have anybody to compare myself to doing the same thing. No one was doing the same thing as me. But when you and I start working together, we have to decide who's going to do this thing and who's potentially better at it, who maybe has more capacity that day. But it's been a really valuable learning experience for me in business and in life and in a relationship to realize if I was doing this by myself, my own company, I would just do it and I'd be the best at it because it's only me. But I have you and you're better at it. So I should stand down from this and I should not do it. Even if I want to do it. You want to put the best player on that task. So I think those are the two big things that I've learned.
Well, thank you for the compliment. And I also feel the same way. I mean, there's certain things where, I can do it, but I know that you are just like, it's almost disqualifying. It's like, well, I could read this contract, but I shouldn't send it until Brian takes a look. Or spreadsheets are obviously a very broad category of this. And coding. It's like, well, I could read this, but guess who's even better that I could call, who's right around the corner or in the other room if I could get there. So yeah, thank you for the compliment, and also know that the feeling is mutual. It is so much more fun to do this with a partners that are complementary in their skill set, and also, ego free enough to pass the things along when they when they need to be passed along, which is a huge part of, I think, for me in the decision-making process of whether or not, it's kind of cool to work with friends or family, is like, well, can we all check ego enough at the door to respect the things that the other person is good enough or better, good or better at.
I have a related question for you on the topic, and I feel like we could do a couple of segments on working with a partner, but this is something that's on my mind a lot. How do you decide to release yourself and trust the other person's judgment? And just say whatever you did, because you're the subject matter expert in this, or you're the decision maker in this vertical, whatever you say goes.
I mean, you stumped me. I don't know that I have an algorithm for that in my head. I think some of it is that you and I in particular are so close, and our partnership started way before a business, that we have a shorthand that I can use as a crib for that decision making. I think it's changed a little over time too. I think there was a day and time when, just to use these two examples of like a contract or a model, where you were so much better at those things and I was way behind on the learning curve. And so that trust fall was immediate. And this is, I think, a good thing, and has happened on both sides, but you got to give me the two examples you want to give on, the things that you think that that are kind of in my wheelhouse. That trust fall happens really early. If you, the individual giving over the decision-making, responsibility, feel or can assess that you are just so far apart in your capability around a certain thing.
Yeah.
And, for a very long time, for a lot of subjects, it's, that's a you or me. I think our abilities delightfully have converged a little bit, and we've specialized in some more ways. But for me, there's a convergence toward, I'm pretty comfortable reading a contract now. It's like, I don't need a nanny as much as I did before. There was a point where I almost felt like, well, if Brian doesn't look at this, maybe it shouldn't, I can't send it because he's got the answers and I have no idea. So I think around a couple of things like that, our abilities are starting to converge because we've spent so much time learning from each other on the job. And I actually think that's a wonderful thing. It's like we're both learning from each other's superpowers. But I want to hear you answer your own question, because I don't have an algorithm. I just know you so well and trust you so well that I can usually tell when it's time for me to say, okay, sweetie.
Well, the first example I have, it actually goes back to your original question about getting started a gear. And for those of you who don't know, Sam invented the first all silicone unibody spatula, and wanted to make it, and did make it, in 10 or 11 or 12 colors. And I say wanted to and did because I wanted to make it in one color, which is black, for all kinds of financial reasons that are now sort of lore, like working capital efficiency and things like that. And Sam said, it's not going to sell in black. There's already black they're boring, why? And I give my reasons, and I just had to say, okay, this is your vision, let's go with it. And 2 months later, it's on the cover of the New York Magazine gift guide with a rainbow of spatulas. And she kind of held it up and said, this is why, and you didn't rub it in my face at all, but it was sort of like, this is what I was talking about. And thankfully I got that lesson like in month 2. Like I said, okay, like you're the boss of this. And I can have an opinion about design, but I really need to trust your judgment and I can focus on something else. So I'm grateful to have kind of gotten that object lesson early. But that was the first one for me. I think the other interesting thing that I think a lot about is the maturation of my decision-making process when it comes to working with a partner. And when I was in my old job, I was a little younger and less mature, maybe, and in some ways cockier. And I didn't want people to look over my shoulder. I didn't want people to check my work or edit my writing. And there's a little bit of that still, as you know. But what shifted for me since we started working together is that there's some things where I feel confident. I don't want to be slowed down. I don't want to have input. And those are like the lower priority things. An email goes out and maybe there's a typo, whatever. I'm gonna send it. But the maturation I've had over the last 10 years working with you is that there are now things where I will refuse to send it, refuse to finish the work until you look at it. Not because I don't trust myself, but because I know that there's going to be things that you think of that I never in a million years would have thought of. And the work product will be better, the email will be better, the contract will be better if you look at it too. And so that's been a big shift for me. And it's very valuable to be able to say, I've done the best I can on this, but it's going to get better when someone else looks at it.
I think what you're saying is that we're paranoid in different ways. Your paranoia and my paranoia match, but are not identical.
They're complementary paranoias.
Yeah, complementary paranoia is a huge, huge advantage in working with a partner. So we've moved on to our next big project, which is to help other people bring their brands to life. I would love to hear your version of an overview of what Mvnifest is and what the process looks like if you're coming to us for help as a new brand.
Yeah, so we think of Mvnifest as a business accelerator for product-based companies. And we can help in a lot of different ways, and people can start to work with us in one of a couple different entry points. Sometimes it's on, hey, I have an idea for a product, but I don't have the design. Or maybe it's I have a design, but I don't know how to manufacture it. Or maybe it's I have a design, I have a supplier, but what I don't want to do is do the logistics and the importing and the shipping. So we can help a company across all those different vectors. I think the part that's really accelerated for us, not to use the word again, in the last year or so, is we're now able to help companies not just with the design and the manufacture and the shipping, but with the business strategy that goes into each of those things. What should I be making? How should I think about packaging relative to the margin structure that I want to have? Where should I be selling based on the products I have and my target customers? Is my product and the packaging and the shipping, are all of those things appropriately oriented towards where I want to be selling? Am I making good financial decisions in each of those different categories? So I think the thing that we're really diving into this year is helping businesses make better decisions around the operational side of their business, not just getting it done, but getting it done better.
Which is a perfect end and segue to my next question. What's the difference between a successful brand and an unsuccessful brand? Or better put, what are some of the traits that you've seen across the more successful companies that we've had a chance to work with or support? There's so many people that want to get into this space. How do they make it work?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the level of paranoia in some ways, right? Like there's a great saying about only the paranoid survive. But the other great saying I think about sometimes is what Jeff Bezos has said about Amazon, which is that it will eventually go bankrupt. Because all companies eventually do, but the great ones last for potentially hundreds of years. And I think what's separating the really successful companies that we work with is a longevity mindset to how do I make small continuous improvements in what I'm doing to increase the likelihood that I don't fail this year, or to increase the likelihood that I do make it for 10 years. Making decisions around potentially small things, like the size of a package, or the way we ship something, or how much money you're willing to spend on an advertising program relative to the expected sales, that will allow you to last for a longer period of time. So, and even if the growth is slower, I think that's a big shift we've seen. Is it the brands that are really succeeding this year are the ones that are willing to trade a little slower growth for making that growth profitable and sustainable and repeatable.
It's so funny because, you see these things in the news as like growth at all costs versus profitable growth. And scaling slowly is something that you and I did together for years, and it didn't feel good.
Didn't feel good.
It was really hard. And I think we also both felt, or at least I felt, this sense of almost envy of these other brands that were growing really quickly and that had money for things that we didn't have money for. And, then you kind of look in the rearview mirror and you're like, oh, okay. We didn't blow up. We didn't blow up in a good way, maybe for a while, but we didn't blow ourselves up. We didn't self-destruct because we were willing to accept, even when it hurt, that path of slower, more methodical growth. And so there's these, this idea of scaling a business, and then the idea of scaling a team. We've scaled teams and businesses over the years and learned a lot in that process. Let's shift to talk about scaling teams for a moment. What do you reflect on in the process of scaling our teams, in terms of where to start, how quickly to move, and maybe what are some signals that you look for in making the decision to scale? And then connect for us at the end, if you can, the idea of scaling the team into what that means for scaling growth.
Yeah, I think this is one of those areas where you've had to push me because it's not part of my natural skill set. Because I'm a manager and I'm a team lead now. But for a long time, I was an independent producer, and I still feel that way. And I like to have hands on keyboard doing things. I like to see the immediate outcome of my work, which is satisfying for me personally, but is a limitation to the growth of a company, because there's only so many hours a day that I can have my hands on the keyboard. And for us to scale, for another business to scale, the leadership with a product vision, a market vision, have to pass on that vision to someone else and have extra hands to help them execute. So I think that the question of when to scale, when to add resources, is when you realize that there are minutes, hours, potentially days in your week where you are doing work that is productive, but is not growing the capability of the company. In the early days of the year, you spent hours and hours doing customer service, responding to individual people who bought a product off of the website. And that had to happen. That was good and valuable, but it didn't advance the scale of the company or the vision of the company. So if you're in a position where you have the product vision, the market vision, and you're spending your time on tasks that are not advancing it, you need to have support. You need to have someone who can help you with those tasks that do have to happen. Because no one can really replace that product market vision that the business owner, the founder, the creative leadership team has. So for me, when I find myself doing tasks that are necessary but are not advancing the business vision, that's a signal to me we need more staff, more help.
This is a tangent, but I want to linger on the idea of customer service for a moment, because there's a nugget in there, which is that early days of a business, especially if you're, an entrepreneur, a single founder with a single product and a vision, and you haven't quite started to build your team yet, you're probably doing customer service. And it's hard. It's really hard to do customer service because you're emotionally exposed to what their needs are, what their feelings are. Sometimes those are feelings of anger. And then you have feelings around your product, right? If you're doing it right, you feel something about your product, and you're all of a sudden colliding with this idea of other people having feelings around your product. And, and maybe those are really, really different feelings. And I think for us, because you were on the front lines of customer service there for a while, and you certainly are for our fulfillment business today, you do a lot of direct customer service, talking to our people. And the idea of empathy rings so strongly to me. Like what we're doing in customer service as business owners, as entrepreneurs, is practicing empathy with our customers and building an understanding of their needs. And even though that happens in a highly exposed and often emotionally charged environment, it helps understand the product and its interaction with the customer, whether that's a user experience interaction, if it's a software product, or a physical user experience interaction with a physical good. I think there are few things that are more directly scalable in terms of an understanding of what the customer need and opportunity is than direct customer service. So it's a sneaky one because it takes time, it takes a lot of effort, and ultimately it is something that as an entrepreneur, you're going to want to pass off to a teammate or a crew of teammates that's really well trained in it. But remembering that you can always go back to that as a way to build empathy around and understanding for the customer. Like put yourself back on the front lines of customer service, once a year or once every quarter.
Totally.
There's nothing better, right?
Yeah. And I think it's kind of why I brought that example up is that it was, and it still is tempting for the both of us to enter into those customer service moments because it's the closest, getting the product right is really what we're here for. It's what gets us out of bed. So if a customer is having an issue with your product, that should be the first thing that you want to go address because you want them to be happy with the product. So I think that to kind of build on what I was saying before, that might be the most important thing that a brand leader can do is be involved in customer service and make sure that either the product is fixed or the way that it's being delivered is fixed so that the customers are happy. But if the brand leader can't do that all day long, that first hire in customer service might be the most important hire you make.
Yeah. Because
if you're passing on your brand message and your vision and your passion for the customer and you instill that into somebody who's now responsible for that, now you duplicated yourself and now you have all this leverage to carry on that brand vision and make sure it's delivered to the customer in the way that you would do it if it was the only thing that you had to do all day.
This question is about team communication, has a little bit to do with the scaling that we were talking about a moment ago. But I wanted to ask you for your thoughts on remote work and remote team building. Kind of open-ended, but shoot.
Yeah. So the background for me is that I was used to showing up at a desk for 10 hours a day in the same place for 10 years. And then when we started working together and for the entire time at Gear and the entire time at Mvnifest, the majority of the team has been remote, which really changes the dynamic. And I think it requires a higher level of trust.
We've built a business that has worked remotely since before that was a thing. We've been remote working since we started in 2012. And I think part of the reason that was possible is that we did have a high degree of trust and communication with each other and with our teams. And that also a lot of the work that we were doing was digital. Our jobs have changed a little bit. We now own physical fulfillment centers and we do a lot of physical prototyping of products that have to make it into the hands of everybody around them. I've never worked with a physical product that I was, a part of the design process for where I didn't learn something from holding a prototype in my hands, whether that was a piece of paper that we folded or some cardboard that we cut apart or, a full scale 3D print. You can just learn so much from holding something in your hands. And I think, so these two businesses that we're running now have a lot of physicality around them. There's physical boxes being shipped around and there's prototypes being shipped around to different teams. And so that's been a real change. But I think what you're saying about the need for trust is a huge part of it. And I think that trust bleeds into speed because, there are things that are just harder to accomplish in a remote environment. And then there's some, like a fulfillment business where you need to trust that that the business owners aren't going to start saying, yeah, sure, remote work's fine, like process returns from your living room.
Right.
So
Well, as I've thought about it, I think there's a lot, and probably almost everything from an office environment that can be replicated to a remote environment. Team culture, camaraderie, you can have video calls like this, and you can have offsites, you can have retreats, you can do all of that. But I think the thing that I miss the most about the office is the ability to get an instantaneous feedback or answer, or maybe a question from someone who's a desk or two away. And I think what we've done is we've replaced it with a lot of meetings, which is good. I think having more formal structured meetings is good, but I have way more meetings now in a remote environment than I ever had in a physical environment. Because we're trying to substitute that, the overlap of time and space where you're available and I'm available, we're both in the office and I need something from you. And because it doesn't happen necessarily organically, we have to create it through the structure of scheduled meetings. That's the part I miss the most. Just, hey, I have a quick question. What about, okay, and then I get my answer. And in 30 seconds, I'm back on my task. Right now, sometimes you might have to wait. Maybe they're in a meeting, or they're doing something else, or they don't see their Slack. So I think you can replicate almost everything else, but the quick instantaneous feedback on something small that could be a huge blocker, that's, I think, the hardest thing so far to solve.
yeah. Well, if we solve for that, it's our next business, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll find a way to productize it. Thank you so much for spending the morning with me.
Well, it's been such a pleasure to get to talk about business with you.
We never do this.
You know, it's a great opportunity.
All right, we'll be back with more. I think there's a whole nother episode I want to do with you on fulfillment logistics and the areas of knowledge that you have that are just, so spectacular relative to what typically the rest of us bring to the first day on the job as founders. So we'll do a part 2, but in the meantime, thank you. And I will see you on Slack.
See you on Slack.